From the surveys I collected, I found that punctuality is very important to many of us. Well, what would you do without a watch to keep that time? Is time something we take for granted? Where do these timepieces come from? In this presentation, I'll hope to inform you of watch types that are available today, some of the important roles in history these watches have played. From my first speech, some of you may recall that as a hobby I enjoy horology, the art of timepieces. I've been an amateur horologist for over 15 years now, exploring different watchmakers, different watch movements, and studying the history of watches along the way. In my opinion, the minute detail that's needed to create an accurate timepiece is astounding. From the most basic quartz watch to the amazingly complicated tourbillon, watch types have been developed and perfected by true artisans. To begin, let's look at the types of watches that are available today and explore the differences in them. From many online blogs and forums, which I am a member of, I've accumulated this knowledge over a great period of time. From my survey, many of you identified the automatic watch as the most familiar to you. Many of you also said that art and history are very interesting to you. So, let's begin where it all started, the mechanical watch. The mechanical watch, in its most basic form, has several moving parts. It requires the winding of a mainspring to set that watch in motion. The earliest watches had this same basic design. As Alan Costa, an Australian historian, notes in his article, The History of Watches, the first wristwatch was made in 1624. This watch was mostly steel and held a spring and only an hour hand. It had to be wound twice per day. These were very inaccurate devices. To increase the accuracy of those devices, more complicated mechanisms had to be made. Eventually, minute hands and second hands were added throughout the time. But it wasn't until the turn of the century that wristwatches would become popular and the automatic watch entered the field. The automatic watch holds essentially the same mechanism as the mechanical watch. However, it doesn't need to be manually wound, as there's a counterweight that performs the winding of the mainspring as your arm moves. Wristwatches were not a very popular item before the turn of the 20th century. Timepieces existed in pocket watches for men and wristlets for women, as John Brozak outlines in his article, The History and Evolution of the Wristwatch, from the January 2004 issue of International Watch magazine. In this same article, Brozak goes on to describe the effect soldiers had in the Boer War of South Africa in changing the face of timekeeping forever. Brozak states that British soldiers fixed leather straps to their pocket watches and wore them on their wrists, and they hailed this new wristwatch as one of the greatest inventions of that era. The newfound ability of these soldiers to synchronize attacks and coordinate flanking maneuvers allowed for British victories in that Boer War. Well, if we fast forward 60 years, there's a new war that's emerged, the Cold War and the race for space. When the U.S. entered that space race, the race to put a man on the moon, super accurate timepieces were required to ensure the proper timing of rocket firings and reliability in the most extreme environments known to man. NASA completed an exhaustive search for the best timepiece available and found the Omega Speedmaster as the most fitting watch for the moon missions. From Omega's official website and their history archives, I found an interesting press release that the company made outlining the extreme tests that were completed on their watch. Included in these tests were exposure tests to pure oxygen, highly acidic steam environments, extreme temperature and pressure tests ranging from 0 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and from vacuums resembling space all the way to twice the pressure on the Earth's atmosphere. Lastly, in these tests were extreme shock tests approaching 9 times the force of gravity. After reading about these tests and the exhaustive trials the watches went through, this watch quickly became one of my favorite timepieces in history. As wristwatches enjoyed a newfound home among men, their popularity grew and a new era of luxury was created. Now, no other watch is known for its complicated design or superior accuracy than the tourbillon. The tourbillon was the least known of the major watch types in my survey. This type of watch takes its name from a French word for whirlwind or tornado, as is seen in the flurry of the movement. According to an article by Joe Svetlik entitled "The Tourbillon: Enigma for the New Watch World," the tourbillon was designed in 1795 for superior accuracy in pocket watches. It wasn't until the late 1930s that tourbillon movement made its way into wristwatches. According to an article published by Business Week in April of 2010, the most expensive watches for sale today are several tourbillons. They range in price from $70,000 to over $3.3 million. Most detailed of designs and intricate inner workings allowed for the tourbillon to be created by master jewelers around the world, but without those designs and without that super accuracy, we wouldn't have the most common style of watch today, the quartz watch. The quartz watch was the second most known of watch styles on my survey. Quartz watches are identified by the small quartz crystal, which is located deep inside the watch body. The quartz watch uses the minute vibrations of this quartz crystal to record time. It was first made in the late 1960s, and the miniaturization of that piezoelectric quartz crystal allowed for the most accurate wristwatch to date. In recent years, quartz watches have enjoyed a flurry of advances, from solar power reserves to super complicated designs showing altitude, direction, heart rate, even barometric pressure. It's this creation, the quartz watch, that allows for time to appear on appliances, your computer you're watching this on right now, even your cell phone. So, to conclude my presentation, I've shown you the basic forms of watches today. Hopefully I've introduced you to something new in this fascinating sector of jewelry, watches. I've also shared with you my passion for horology and the intriguing historical aspects, or at least a few of them, that these watches have played. From the Boer War, when watches became mainstream, to the importance of wristwatches in the space race. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I hope you'll ask me some questions about watches so I can further introduce you to other timepieces, other aspects of horology that might get you into that hobby as well.